Welcome. What is up? Welcome to the Mixer. I'm your host, RC. Jeff will be by in a minute. Today, we will be recapping the first Formula One race of the season at Bahrain, the Bahrain Grand Prix. We'll talk a little bit of NFL free agency if we get a chance. But first things first, if you could rate and review, that'd be awesome. We got our Drive to Survive series. I've recorded 4 episodes. It's supposed to be a show companion, basically, where I run through the episodes somewhat messily and just talk about what comes to mind, things I forgot, little things that I want to point out, and yeah, in just kind of overall critique or rating of the show and how it's going. I know it brought a lot of people into the sport, so wanted to just explore the show itself and give you guys something else to listen to or follow along while you do your binge watch. We are on Spotify and iTunes and most other pod feeds, so give us a subscribe there. We're also on YouTube. You can check us out there. It's the Mixer channel, and we are on pretty much all the major social networks, but Twitter is going to be the primary. It's at FCY Mixer, so give us a follow there if you have not already done so. But without further ado, let's get into the Bahrain race recap. Going to go over what happened, quick summary. Well, maybe not a quick summary, but I guess a comprehensive summary with our flair here, and then we'll have some discussion after. But yeah, so the F1 season opened in Bahrain, making it the third time the track has hosted the first race on the calendar. Teams were eager to go racing with their new equipment and see how they fared in F1's new hierarchy. The race weekend started after a week of testing where traditional heavyweights Mercedes were adamant they were struggling to keep pace with their rivals at Red Bull. Sus. Meanwhile, Ferrari, Haas, and Alfa Romeo all appeared to take steps up compared to the teams they were competing with last season, leaving us wondering, could the grid dynamics we saw last season have a significant reshuffle? Oh, the suspense. Red Bull appeared to have the upper hand, leading 2 out of 3 practice sessions with their sister car at AlphaTauri, Pierre Gasly leading the other. Ferrari was consistently next best ahead of Mercedes. Haas, surprisingly, also appeared well ahead of McLaren, Alpine, and Aston Martin headed into qualifying. Then we get to the reveal. All the bluster and bullshit would finally be set aside, and we get the first true competitive action to see whose hard work would pay off on track. 4 cars who had enjoyed the luxury of running Mercedes engines in the previous seasons did not make it out of Q1, including Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren. The shootout for pole in Q3 held mostly familiar faces, with Kevin Magnussen's Haas being the big surprise. He managed to qualify 7th in the session ahead of George Russell's Mercedes, 9th, and former champion Fernando Alonso's Alpine in 8th. Leclerc and Verstappen emerged as the 2 in contention for pole. In the end, it would be the Ferrari driver claiming the top spot on the grid ahead of the reigning champ by a 10th of a second. Finally, we arrived to race day, where even more questions would be answered. Is Ferrari truly back? Can they sustain a full race at the front of the field, or will bad luck and lack of consistency for a full Grand Prix strike them again? Will Hamilton and Mercedes find their pace on race day? Is the Haas really going to do this and take points in race 1? Lights out in the 2022 F1 season is underway. The 2 Ferraris and Verstappen got away with Sergio Perez, who started 4th, losing positions. Top 3 got away clear and clean. Valtteri Bottas, who started 6th in his Alfa Romeo, dropped 8 spots on the first lap. Not looking too great for Valtteri. It only took until lap 4, and champion Verstappen was raising the alarm his Red Bull may be hobbled, suggesting the engine braking of the Red Bull badged Honda power unit was strange. Hamilton opted to pit somewhat early on lap 12, taking hard tires in what may have been an attempt at a one-stop strategy. The leading pair, Leclerc and Max, pit on laps 15 and 16, respectively, and here's where it got a little spicy. Leclerc ceded 2 seconds back to Max in the first pit cycle, putting Verstappen in DRS range. Going into turn 1 on lap 17, Max made his move, diving down the inside. Leclerc kept his cool and got a good drive out of turns 2 and 3 and made a bold pass around the outside into turn 4 to retake the lead. Max used his DRS advantage again on the front straight. 1 lap later on turn 18, overtaking the Ferrari from further back this time, but Leclerc again was able to retake the lead into turn 4, this time passing Verstappen on the inside. A more desperate Max tried for the third time in as many laps to pass Charles on lap 19 into turn 1. This time he could not make the move stick, locked up his inside tire, and ran wide. The champion Verstappen would settle in behind Charles for the time being. The rest of the field saw no significant movement in the middle parts of the race. Bottas began to regain his positions he lost on his opening laps, while both McLarens were notably struggling toward the back of the grid. Sergio Perez held fastest lap at mid-race distance with an outside chance of leapfrogging Carlos Sainz, who was in third, if Sergio Perez could make his tire strategy work. Medium tires became the clear optimum tire selection when the hards offered no clear durability advantage and the softs were degrading quickly. Both Mercedes cars switched off the hards by lap 32, and Sainz in third was questioning a 3-stop strategy due to the degradation of his mediums. The pair of contenders at the front pit on laps 31 and 32. When Leclerc narrowly emerged from his pit stop, with Leclerc narrowly emerging ahead of Max Verstappen. The champion radioed to his team that he felt he could have taken the lead if his team would have let him push hard on his outlap. He vowed to never again take it easy on his outlaps. Both Red Bulls pit on lap 44 in what surprised most of the grid, or seemed to. It certainly surprised the commentators. And they changed to a 3-stop strategy, opting for softs immediately after Max reported issues with his power steering. Sainz mirrored the Red Bull strategy, who was running at second at the time, took soft tires on lap 45. Meanwhile, Leclerc stayed out, not opting for 3 stops. A proverbial wrench was thrown into the procession to the checkered flag, and it reared its head in the form of a flaming Frenchman's AlphaTauri. Pierre Gasly pulled his Red Bull engine car to the side of the track on lap 46. It was on fire. Leclerc was successfully able to rejoin the lead, diving into the pits after the safety car was deployed. George Russell gained 3 positions, up to 6, thanks to a cheap pit stop. And this set up for a 7-lap race to the end on fresh rubber. Oh, the excitement. Max nearly played himself out of second on the restart by trying to intimidate Leclerc into getting back on the throttle early. A frantic Verstappen, shortly after the restart, begins complaining of battery issues on lap 54. Then, almost immediately after, he started falling like a rock through the grid. He would not make it to lap 55. He pulled his car into the pits once he got to the front stretch, retiring his car. His teammate Sergio Perez would suffer the same fate on the final lap of the race when his engine seized, suggesting Red Bull may have significant reliability issues with their 2022 Challenger. Charles Leclerc took the checkered flag ahead of his teammate, and the Tifosi rejoiced, celebrating their first win in 46 races, ending their longest race win drought ever with a 1-2 at Bahrain. And we had Hamilton being last on the podium in third. 5 out of 6 Ferrari engine cars finished in the points, the lone exception being Mick Schumacher and his Haas, while Magnussen took 5th and newcomer Grosjean Zhu, or Joe, as the commentators are referring to him, took points in his first ever Formula One Grand Prix. And that is how your opening race of the 22 Formula One season went down. Jeff, my dude, what an opener, yeah?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the whole weekend from FP1 all the way through to the end of the race. Yeah, just great to be back.
Yeah, we got new looks, significant new looks on the cars, and we presume there would be a shakeup in the way the teams found themselves against their competitors, and I mean, it looks like we did. With a Ferrari 1-2, Red Bull still at the front, Mercedes still at the front, relatively speaking. Mercedes might be the new Ferrari. Um, but I
Um,
mean, what are your thoughts about the power dynamics right now? Are Ferrari the team to beat?
well, currently Ferrari's clearly the team to beat. They're the only ones that have shown zero issues. Red Bull hadn't really shown any issues until the end of the race, but then, when 3 out of 4 cars that have your powertrain don't finish the race, it's really concerning. And Mercedes issues, a lot of people have talked about their power unit and it doesn't seem as strong. And if you start like reading into it and looking at what some of the engineers have said for different teams, I don't think it's any issue with the Mercedes power unit. I think it's an issue with the aero and the drag slash downforce that's created on these cars. Like Mercedes themselves said they had to lift the car up to avoid porpoising, which was costing them about 7/10 a lap from where they like ideally could be. Um, and so, you take that into account. If they can fix that, then it looks like they're just, on par with Red Bull and Ferrari there, which means that it's likely not a power unit issue. It's likely a design issue somewhere with the Mercedes type cars. Now, it's kind of funny that all the Mercedes cars seem to have missed the mark so far. Um, McLaren's got huge issues. Lando and Daniel both said they have basically zero downforce. Aston Martin had issues. It's tough to judge Aston Martin too much though, because they had a replacement driver in Hulkenberg, who I think tried to do his best, but he was complaining at the end of the race that he just wasn't fit to drive a full race. He said he got noticeably tired towards the end. But
Who was that?
it
Lando?
is what it is. It is nice to see. I do think that there's no clear like engine advantage currently. Obviously, Ferrari looks really good because all their teams hit the mark on their designs. Red Bull looks really good. Granted, they had reliability issues in this race. I imagine they'll get that fixed. But it looks like it's going to be a fun year. Like we could have potentially a 2, if not 3-way battle for first in both the constructors and the drivers championship. If Mercedes get their issues figured out.
For the brand. I'm sorry, I missed that. Which Mercedes driver did you say wasn't fit?
Hulkenberg, not
Oh,
Mercedes driver, but a Mercedes
Williams.
engine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That makes
he
sense.
mentioned it. Yeah, he mentioned after the race that because he didn't race last year at all,
Mm-hmm.
and it had been almost 2 years since he was in an F1 car. He mentioned that he was noticeably tired towards the end of that race.
And he was a late ad because
Vettel tested positive for COVID.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good stuff. So I have a few theories about what could be going on here with Mercedes engine vehicles being noticeably off the pace from previous seasons, and also may explain Ferrari's advantage and maybe Red Bull's issues as well. Obviously, there have been significant changes from last season to this season. Aero, which you brought up, the cars look different. You can just tell. Engines, for the most part, are the same. They refer to the kind of the energy system as a power unit, because it's not just the engine, it's the battery pack too that harvests the kinetic energy and deploys it electronically. I won't bore you with with those details too much, but there was another part that will affect everything. They changed the fuel. There's 10 the fuel that they run, Shell gasoline. Obviously it's not the same shit you can fill up for freaking 750 a gallon here. Um, but it had a 5% renewable biofuel in it. So it's like a cleaner gasoline, or I mean just what the libs want. And they bumped that up. They doubled it. Now it's 10%. It's a 10% biofuel. So that's going to change the way the engines perform. Also, the weight of the cars. The cars are heavier now. So that's going to change the way the cars perform. Supposedly, the Ferrari gets better drive out of the corners and has done so for a while. Whereas Mercedes, I don't know if they had a mid range power advantage, or what their advantage, or maybe it was on the top end. But either way, like the power band, I don't know if anybody's ever, like ridden a motorcycle. But getting into that sweet spot where you get like optimal drive out of the corners is easier with the Ferrari engine. So how that ties in to everything. Obviously, since the cars are heavier and Ferrari's getting the drive out of the corners, they're going to have better top end speed towards the end, and also, they're just going to have they're going to be more forgiving coming out of those corners, and so Red Bull might have known this, taken some risks on their design. Maybe they're not getting enough airflow. Ferrari is sponsored by Shell, so a little piece of me thinks that they might have gotten information about the fuel sooner. Maybe the fuel mix is even designed to work well with a Ferrari engine. I keep coming back to when they first put in the ERS, the energy recovery system, that the battery pack. They were Mercedes, and once they were supplied by Mercedes, and once everybody had that same battery pack, wouldn't you know, Mercedes had a huge advantage. Now there's a significant change to the fuel supplied by Shell. Shell sponsors Ferrari. They seem to have an advantage. 5 of their 6 cars finished in the points. If Mick Schumacher could live up to his name ever, maybe all Ferraris. I know I keep throwing slander at Mick. I'm just saying it. He just gets a free pass. Nobody criticizes him, but like, dude, come on, you got to do something at some point here.
I do agree with you. I will defend him a little bit in this race, in that he said his car was damaged after getting spun on like turn 6. Obviously not horribly damaged, but he said that he noticed it was more difficult to drive after that. And that spin, I think, cost him 2 spots at that point in the early or something like that. So, it wasn't. He ran a fairly clean race after that, but I don't think he had the same advantages that he may have had he not spun, if that makes sense.
Right. The jury's still out on Mick, but I think if he was going to be like a championship level driver, we would have seen him something by now, and we just haven't. So I mean, I think he's just going to be like a lifer. His ceiling's probably like Nico Hulkenberg or something. But I mean, that's still a hell of a career you can have like that. But anyway, so go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say real quick, I want to shout out to Valtteri for doing his best Mercedes impression, except in the second half of the race, doing what he couldn't do to save his job. Basically, Valtteri got off to his normal Mercedes start where he just fell down the grid.
Mm-hmm.
But in this race, he happened to get all those positions back. Whereas last year or the last couple of years with Mercedes, like if he fell down, he really struggled to get positions back. Um, and so it was just really kind of funny to watch that because it was like he went from sixth to 14th right at the start of the race, and then ended up in sixth again, or sixth or seventh, something like that. Um, it's just kind of funny seeing that. It was like, oh, Valtteri, maybe if you did that last year, you'd still be a Mercedes driver, but who knows?
Yeah, and he out qualified George Russell, which social media was just thrilled about.
I will say, I think the Mercedes they seem further off than they actually are. Like if you look at the best qualifying times, like I think Lewis in Q3 was like 7/10 off, and George was obviously like a second and a half off or something like that. But if you take everyone's best qualifying times, they're only like half a second off. And then if you watch the race, Lewis was pretty much on Sainz's butt until lap 8 or 9. He was only like half a second off for the whole like first part of the race, but then his tires gave out, and that's when he like dropped back, and that's when Perez caught him again. And then for a large part of the middle of the race, he was just on hards, and everyone else went to mediums, and it was just kind of there does seem to be a significant speed difference in tires this year, more than at least seemed like there was last year. And like you said, I think Mercedes was hoping they could get through with a one stop, but the tire degradation just seems off the charts right now. And who knows why that is. But that was interesting to see everyone have to go to a three stop on Sunday.
Yeah, it seemed to catch them off guard. The track conditions, they always change. Bahrain's dusty. Naturally, it's in the middle of a freaking desert. The track temperature changes too from having that many cars going around. In that concentration, they wouldn't have had that the whole weekend. So, it's not unique to this race. Also, the tires are new. I forgot to mention they're on 18-inch rims. I guess they're a little bigger. The size of the actual wheel itself looks not to have changed too much. The wheel covers kind of make it tough to really tell. But yeah, there's just a lot of variables there. The teams are naturally going to be figuring all that out. It just seems like just in general there's a clear indications that the Ferrari engine is working well compared to the others, and it has allowed them to do things like add more downforce because they have the engine to push them through that air. About Red Bull, though, they had 3 of their 4 engines. They're saying that it's some fuel supply, but we never get the actual reason of what happened. But Red Bull, it's a Red Bull badged Honda. Honda is withdrawn, but it's the same engine. They're just calling it a Red Bull. Honda is still supporting them. This is all just super confusing, but I noticed that there's not a single Honda logo on anything of theirs. It's not on the car. It's all Oracle. It's not on the freaking the intake behind the driver. Usually you'd see like a little badge there with the engine. It's not there, and it's not on their polos or anything. It's probably not even on their freaking MeUndies. Do you think they have Honda mouse pads at least, Jeff? Like,
I doubt it. They've rebranded everything to Red Bull powertrains. So
yeah, and I can't help but think that this relationship with Honda or lack thereof in some way must have contributed to what we saw this week. It could be coincidental, but 3 out of 4. It's either that or worse that Red Bull came up with a radical design with their aero, and the car's not getting enough airflow and causing problems with the internals. But I mean, Max Verstappen on lap 4 was saying the engine's doing something weird in braking. So
Yeah, but that was well. Obviously, I didn't listen to all of his messages, and they didn't play all of them. But that seemed to be the only time he mentioned anything about that. But I
yeah, it
was
might have
reading
been.
today.
They might have cut off the transmission where they said, "Hey, Max, like, yeah, we know about that. That's a fucking known issue, dude. Don't say that on the radio."
True. I was reading today though that Red Bull was the only team not to do any like full race length runs or really low fuel runs in testing, and that it's likely they would have seen these issues had they done that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so it seems like a slight oversight on their part not to be the only team not to do that, or maybe they just didn't think anything like this would be an issue.
Yeah, if that's true that they didn't do any long race runs, it's I mean, that's either to me that they're hiding something good or they're hiding something bad. I don't
Yeah,
know why
well,
they or they're overconfident.
they did simulated race runs, but they didn't do anything like stay out for 60 laps at a time. I don't know if anyone really did that, but they also didn't do any like really low fuel runs either. They kept it like
Mhm.
somewhat, you know, over fueled at times. And so that's the other thing that they may have been able to see it. I know there were other teams that, like McLaren, changed the fuel pump after qualifying because they didn't like something with it. Um, and Red Bull chose to keep their same setup. So I know there were other teams that had issues with the same part or same like part of the power unit that decided to make changes to it. So I doubt it's just a Red Bull issue. It just could be the way they have everything set up that maybe they've exacerbated the issue per se, if that makes any sense. Um, but yeah, this is something that, from what I've read, could be a problem going forward unless there's a change made.
Hmm.
And then there's the other theory that they just completely underfueled the car and that Max and Sergio ran out of gas at the end.
God, that would be. Yeah, I mean, as it is with a lot of things, it's probably a combination of a lot of this. Um, I'm going to chalk up Ferrari's advantage to the fuel, and that's going to give them an advantage over every team, and they're obviously the teams they provide the engines for, like Haas and Alfa Romeo.
I will say this to counter that, although I'm happy Ferrari's doing well because I really enjoy Leclerc. If that's why they have an advantage, I would be worried if I were Ferrari because I'm looking at so this is Bahrain lap times from lap 3 to lap 44. So kind of in out you take out the start of the race and you take out a bunch of what happened at the end, right? And Ferrari is at like 98.3 seconds per lap. Red Bull's average is like 98.4, and Mercedes is at like 98.7. They're the only three teams under 99 seconds per lap.
Mm.
If Ferrari really has this advantage because like they've got some inside information on the fuel and stuff, what happens when Red Bull and Mercedes realize the same information? Like they're just probably going to make a jump and Ferrari will be back in third. So I
Yeah,
hope that that's not necessarily like the reason they're in first right now.
yeah. I mean, it could be that they're starting ahead though. They can make changes to their car. They're not. Well, they should make changes and improve because I mean the stupid one of the F1 isms is if you stay still, you're
Right.
falling behind because of the progression. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just an idea.
No, I
Um,
get that. The only team I'm really worried about is Williams. Everyone else has like legitimate issues that it seems like like McLaren has setup and brake issues. They looked decent in the first round of testing at in Spain. Aston Martin has, some setup issues as well. A lot of the Mercedes teams are dealing with porpoising. And I was reading an engineer talking about the Mercedes team themselves, and they said that basically they did too good of a job in getting downforce, and that's what's creating their porpoising. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in order to get rid of that, they've had to. That's why they like raced the car, was
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of that. And so, there's the thought, obviously, that like if they can figure that out, they'll have a big advantage because of the downforce. They'll be able to run smaller wings, even on tracks that they might need more downforce, kind of thing. But I think the Mercedes teams are a little deceptive because they all have setup issues right now, except Williams. They just look bad all around.
Right. Yeah,
Um, you
Williams
know,
needs a new engine supplier to come in. They're kind of freaking fourth in the Mercedes totem pole, and a
yeah.
distant fourth at that. I mean, there's Audi, there's Porsche rumors, there's always BMW rumors. So yeah, I mean that's the only hope for Williams and their return to glory.
Williams, yeah. They need to take the Haas route and just become a partner team, basically, for
Well, I mean
someone.
they are with
No, but like
Mercedes
a
kind of.
a real partner team. Like
Yeah.
Haas literally joined the same building that Ferrari had, or they're like next door.
Yeah, that's true. So, so yeah, I mean, wild race one. Uh, Jeff, do you know who's third in the constructors right now for the
It's
brand?
Haas, I
It's
believe.
it's Haas with 9 points over Alpine, who I think has 8. Alpine just kind of there. We got the Saudi GP next. I don't know what the hell they expect with that race because it's long, kind of windy. I mean, there's just too many variables.
Um,
Last season, it seemed like Mercedes had an advantage, which would make me think that it's like an engine dominated track, which at this point would probably mean Ferrari has an advantage. Red Bull could have even more problems. So yeah, I mean that's where we're at.
yeah, I imagine I would pick uh, kind of the same as this week. I would still put a Ferrari like 1-2 or 1-3. I'd put Red Bull 2-4 or 3-4. Um, I think Mercedes showed me enough that they should probably be solidly fifth and sixth. They weren't quite good enough to catch the top two teams, although they could stay somewhat close. But they seemed far and away better than everyone else. Well, not far and away, but like Magnussen on softs couldn't make up any ground to George Russell when he was on mediums or hards at one point in the race. He was solidly like 15 seconds behind. So I think the Mercedes is good enough that they should stay third. After that, it's interesting. Like Alfa Romeo, Haas, the Alpha Tories, if they don't have problems. We could see a nice mix there. Even the Alpines look decent. Alonso looked fairly slow, but that could have just been Bahrain, you know. Um, but yeah, it's I would expect pretty similar results to this first week, um, but another exciting race.
I'm excited. I think Red Bull might have their problems compounded. I haven't seen anything about them needing to take new equipment. It's early in the week. I mean, it's Tuesday, but yeah, I mean, they had problems with engines last year. So if that's already creeping up race one, like it's not it's not where you want to be. So
Right.
pray for Ginger Spice, you know.
Yeah, I don't expect much of a difference though because it's only a one week in between, so there's not a lot of time to get new parts and stuff, especially with the budget cap going on. Um, and I know like Mercedes and I know Ferrari has said this. I'm sure other teams that they expect the first set of big changes to come around Imola. So we're still like a month and a half away from that.
Yeah, I'm hyped. Have you looked at the first few races? I mean, we go to Saudi Arabia and then
Then
Australia,
Australia.
which is they redid one of the corners or maybe even two of the corners. So I'm
Yeah.
really eager to because the changes, it looks like it's going to make it more it's going to have a long straightaway. Before, there hasn't been too much passing on
Okay.
that track. And
Yeah.
anyway, it's kind of like a sneaky street circuit. It's built on a park, kind of like Montreal. But anyway, so that track should race better than it has in the past. And then we have Miami shortly after. I'm not sure if they're the fourth or the fifth race, but yeah, I mean it's we're already hitting some spicy tracks. Usually you have to wait a little while. So
Yeah.
so I'm hyped for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see what teams can do with like really just making setup changes and see if any like big improvements can be unlocked. Yeah, I'm excited. It was fun. You could see that the cars could clearly follow each other better. It didn't look like overtaking was all that easy though. You still had to get better runs. DRS wasn't a huge advantage unless you were Max and Charles wasn't going into eighth gear. I thought that was really interesting. Uh, but yeah, that was it looks like racing will be more fun in general.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one point I missed. It does seem like the new design makes it for battles like we saw between Max and Charles. Bahrain has been kind of processional in the past, so I know last season it was just insane, crazy. Usually with when a new regulations come out, the first few races are really boring because everybody's playing it conservative, and there was a good amount of track action this time around. So that is for sure encouraging.
Yeah.
Jeff, in our lead up to this first race, though, we missed something big. DraftKings has Formula One contest now. How in the hell did we miss that?
Well, I'm in a state that I can't do it, so that's my excuse.
Yeah, so okay. Yeah, I mean I didn't hear I got to work in like water cooler talk. Some guy was like, "Hey, did you see DraftKings has a Formula One contest?" And I'm like, "What?" Cap, as the kids say. And then one of like 4 for 4 the fantasy football podcast I listened to, they had like a DraftKings show, and I was like, "This is freaking TJ Hernandez talking about Charles Leclerc." Like, okay, talking about how Bottas was chalk. It's like what world what world is this? What dimension have I freaking transported into? And they also said like the engines are completely changed, which are obviously not true. So follow us for your Formula One insider info, please. TJ, if by some miracle you hear this, my dude, I'm in San Diego too. We could get together, talk about how you don't like IPAs and how that's a bad take, and how and how the engines are all different. That's okay. There's plenty of people that are new to F1. Who am I to dunk on people I have no business dunking on? But I'm just saying, there's a lot of there's a lot of newbies coming into this space. I hate that phrase when people say in this space. I don't know why. Um, anyway, so yeah, we got an opportunity here. I mean, I'm thinking about you know looking at the DraftKings stuff once they post salaries and tweeting out about it. Maybe even doing like a pre-race thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's something I really want to jump on because I think we have a clear advantage. Um, I'm amped though. I'm so amped on F1. I'm bullish on F1. Ferrari, who I've actually been a lifelong fan of, looks like they're back. So yeah. Not to shift gears abruptly, but I did want to talk about NFL free agency a little bit. So I'm just going to go through some of the big moves here. We had Desean Watson go to the Browns after telling them he wouldn't go to the Browns. That's not awkward at all. Then we
That's what
had
happens when you guarantee $230 million.
yeah. Then we had Carson Wentz go to the Washington Commanders, no longer the football team. Matt Ryan to Indy, Freaky Friday, Phil Rivers impression. Mariota to the Falcons. Russell Wilson to the Broncos, which I think we already mentioned. Jimmy G is rumored to be heading elsewhere. Devontae Adams to the Raiders. We only talk about offense here. And A-Rob, Allen Robinson, of course, to AR-15 to LA. LA is equipped with an AR-15. No, there's nothing there. Let's leave that. We're about peace on this podcast. So yeah, Jeff. I mean, what we got to talk about Desean Watson. I mean, are you still a lifelong Browns fan?
I'm honestly thinking about it. I'm not one to make these hasty judgments. The you know they've tried to get Desean Watson in court, and the grand jury decided not to prosecute. So there's obviously a lack of evidence somewhere. But it's hard for me to reconcile that, like, 22 women come out and say roughly the same thing. Like, it just doesn't seem fake, you know? There may not be enough evidence to convict him, but it seems like there's enough circumstantial evidence that he's just not a good guy. So yes, I am having some second thoughts about it. Obviously, as a football player and for what he likely brings to the Browns, it's exciting. It's also just a hell of a lot to give up for someone. 3 first-round picks the next 3 years,
and a butt ton of money.
Yeah, so I don't know. The Browns it's definitely not a good look, is what I'll say. Interested to see if he gets suspended this year and for how long, if it happens. But yeah, I mean, that's really my thought. It's really just I'm unsure about it, to be completely honest.
Okay, excellent to hear. Carson Wentz. Okay, so the Colts move out Wentz, who was one of the toughest quarterbacks to watch last season. I literally couldn't even. And Matt Ryan, they bring in Matt Ryan, who was like the other quarterback that I literally #can't even with. Supposedly, Indy's offensive line is better, so that should help Matt Ryan because he's a freaking statue. He's basically like Phillip Rivers. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. These just seem like the Spider-Man meme. Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. It's like the same tier quarterback for Indy to me. I'm more interested with Mariota the Falcons. Obviously he's had his chances, Mariota, but I guess I'm optimistic something's still in the tank there. Jeff, I mean, do you think Jimmy G's gonna go anywhere? Do you have any thoughts on the other quarterback shifting spots?
I don't think Jimmy G goes anywhere. I think Trey Lance is a Jordan Love 2.0. I'm not sold on Trey Lance. I don't think he looked very good last year. Obviously, I think he's got huge fantasy potential. But there's a reason the 49ers haven't traded Jimmy G yet. And It's got to be because they're not sold on Trey Lance. It's the only thing that makes sense in my mind. So.
Yeah, I mean, God, I keep hearing rumors that like Brady still might be moving. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that plays into it, but yeah, I think we've been saying that the player composition as far as quarterbacks go is going to change for like 2 years. We were way ahead of this curve, and we kept saying it, and like nothing happened, and now all of a sudden everything's happening.
Yeah,
there's a huge shakeup. Everybody's in the AFC now. which, I mean, bring it, chumps. And yeah, it should be. I mean, this league, it should be exciting. I saw something that said that the Browns gave up the same thing that the Niners did to get Trey Lance, which is pretty sad.
I mean, roughly, yeah, it's 3 first-round picks. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to see how these teams try to acquire great quarterbacks and the lengths that they're willing to go and look the other way with these guys to bring them in to win some games, so put some asses in seats. So yeah, good stuff. Jeff, I was going to tell you about a story, Rob versus Retail, how I almost got abducted, but I think we'll save that for next for next. Yeah,
all
the
right,
war on
I'm in.
the war on retail has begun. I'm now a Facebook Marketplace shopper almost exclusively,
Oh my
and
god.
all right, let's get out of here. Yeah,
Yeah, let's do it.
let's get some pumpernickel.
Okay, Toto.